What I'm saying now, maybe it would be a good idea to go and grab your translation device at the back near the translation booth, because there's going to be some French today as well. It's a bilingual French and English assembly, just in respect and to recognize the beautiful diversity of our nations throughout Turtle Island. And we have two colonial languages, so French and English. There are two, so we need to respect that. So please go and pick your translation device at the back if needed. Alors aujourd'hui, nous avons une journée.
Today we have a very full day. Once again, there will be plenaries, and there will also be several draft resolutions which have been assembled by subject or topic, and these are what we call omnibus draft resolutions. We'll discuss it more later today, and for the moment, I would like to pass the floor over to my team of co-chairs so that they can start speaking with you too. We're starting very soon. We invite all the delegate participants, the chiefs, the proxies to come and join us and take their place slowly in the room. We should be starting at 9, so.
This day pretty soon. We're waiting for the delegation and chiefs and proxies to get seated. And during that moment, we will introduce ourselves, and I'll pass the floor over to Cedric or Véronique. I don't know which one is after me. Have a good day, everyone. Bonne journée, tout le monde.
Have a great day. Good morning. Hello again. For those who weren't here yesterday, I'm Véronique Picard, Vice Chair of the Committee of Youth for the AFN.
Today I'm Véronique Picard. I am the co-chair for the National Youth Council, and I have the honor to be the youth co-chair for this assembly as well. And I am from Wendake. So have a great day. I will now pass on to Cedric so he can introduce himself as well.
Good morning, everyone. Pug. I hope you guys got a good rest last night. We did have a late end, but I hope that you guys did get to enjoy the information that was shared in camera with you. My name is Cedric Gray-Lehoux. I'm Mi'kmaq from the community of Listigouge, and again here with my co-chairs today as we slowly get started on our agenda. As we said yesterday, we do have quite a full agenda. This was the assembly with the most on-time resolutions in AFN history. So today will be a good day. We're going to try to stay tight on our times while being a little lenient when we have to. We will come back in a few minutes with our opening presentation by our accessibility team. So grab a final coffee, get your friends into this room, and we'll be starting in a few minutes. Thank you.
avec l'accessibilité. On va commencer avec ça.
English, English, English.
Good morning, sir. Good, you? That's good. Let's go to the my co-chair, Véronique. And I need to start now. Yes, later. Yeah. We need just later. Yeah. Qu'est-ce que j'ai? Ah ouais.
English, English, English.
Everyone, so just before getting started officially, we are going to start the day in a good way today. Every day we start in a good way, but today I'll have the chance to and the honor to invite Marsha to the stage because we'll have a little activity. We'll learn some sign languages as well today. So, hello. We'll learn that later, but hello everyone. And I just want to say that you do remember that when we to applause in sign languages, it's like that. So let's not forget that when we'll thank Marsha after her lesson class. So once more, we're excited to have the accessibility champion, Marsha Ireland, and Debbie Parliament and her team to join us today. Thank you for being here today. For those newly joining us, yesterday we had the honor of introducing Marsha Ireland from the Oneida Nation of the Thames. She's an advocate for sign language and Oneida Sign Language. Marsha and the team will now share with us how we can learn some basic sign language together. We'll have a 3 to 5 minutes interactive interactive sign language together. And on that, I welcome Marsha on the stage.
I'll start again. Sagoli, Tehum, Dagwegum, Dayon, So this morning, I'm going to teach you a few signs. I'm really happy to see all of you here. Sagoli. Remember Sagoli? Can you copy me? Can I get you to do what I'm doing up here? There you go, Sagoli. Sagoli. In ASL, it'd be hello? Hello?
Hello.
I'm going to teach you a new one. How? How? You? So maybe you want to ask someone how they are. So I'll clarify you will use your left hand and point out or glide your hand out. In Oneida Sign Language, that would be how are you? On your left hand, you would move that for Sagoli to say hello. So it's kind of Sagoli, like hello with ASL. It really depends on how you want to greet the person that you're seeing this morning. Maybe you want to check in and see how they are. So in Oneida Sign Language, how are you? Yonko. Oneida Sign Language, Yonko. ASL, it would be thank you. We also see miigwech. And in the western parts of these lands, we'll see it like this. Yesterday we learned chief. So you would use these three fingers, chief. Can I see all of you do it? All of the chiefs here today, everyone who's a chief, chief.
Sometimes it changes from Oneida and ASL because there are three, Oneida Sign Language, ASL, and
Yonko. I have a special bit of information to share with you. Everybody knows Weena. We see her quite a bit at these AGAs. She has a big responsibility. And because we've worked together as much as we have, I have given her this name sign that you'll see where it's, and I've given it to her because of her long earrings. She always wears her long, long earrings. So Yonko, for all that you do. You got it, yes. Yonko, everyone.
Miigwech, Marsha, and the team, Debbie and all your team. And this activity is always very appreciated because it's, Marsha is such a warm person, and we all like to learn that way with her teachings. It's so interesting, and I can see that on the floor in the assembly. Every time she's on the stage, everyone appreciates that. So thank you, miigwech, from Weena. Okay, so on that, it is now 9:12, and we now call this assembly. This assembly is now called to order. Alors la séance est ouverte.
The session is open. The meeting officially began at 9:12, and I will now pass the floor over to my colleague Cedric to tell you what we'll be doing today. We'll go over the agenda, so I wish you a great day. There's lots of work to do, but I'm sure we're going to get there, everybody together. Have a great day. Les extraterrestres arrivent. Alors,
Bon matin à mes cousins, cousines, frères.
good morning to my cousins, brothers and sisters, Francophone brothers and sisters. I'd like to
New agenda for today, again, with some delays that do happen at these assemblies. Today we will start with the AFN Council reports and have a few plenaries, including one on policing, on the Clean Water Act, as well as on specific claims. We have a few guests also coming with us. So we have Minister of Cernak, Minister Ananda Sonagari, who will be here, as well as the Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister. We will then be getting into resolutions. Again, I will mention it, this is the Assembly with the most on-time resolutions ever. We got through 7 of them yesterday, as is prescribed in the rules and procedures in your conference booklets. We started with our charter amendments, went to our organizational, and then had a few others, such as the emergency resolution. We still have 61 on-time resolutions remaining for the rest of the Assembly, as well as 10 late resolutions. And a little word on that, you have until today at noon to submit a late resolution. So those are due again today at noon. Since we do have such an amount of resolutions, we'd like to remind you guys maybe a bit of the process, which once again found in your conference booklets on omnibus packages. So it's been practice, as per the resolutions procedures section, to group resolutions by subject matter so that we may be able to pass them as a single omnibus package. The AFN Resolutions Committee has been reviewing all resolutions with considerations to which ones could or should be grouped into these packages, and then goes and seeks approvals from the movers and seconders of each resolution before having them grouped together. Given the significant amount of work that still needs to be accomplished, the Resolutions Committee typically recommends any resolutions that do not provide significant new mandates or policy direction to the AFN to be put into an omnibus. As with any motion, a mover or seconder are needed to present these omnibus packages, and they will be able to use their dedicated speaking time to address one or more of the resolutions within the packages. We will then go through the therefore be it resolved of each resolution within the package, and we will then go also to amendments within the packages as well. Once the proposed amendments, the regular process has been followed, we will then vote for the resolutions as a package. We try to get to every resolution that is submitted, especially the on-time ones, but it can happen that we do not get to that. If we run out of time, then the remaining resolutions will be referred to the executive committees for decision or deferred to a later assembly. So again, regular process, but we just wanted to take the time this morning to remind you of it and say that we will be doing our best to keep tight. There's a lot of work to get through, so let's get it done. And I want to take the time also to thank you guys for yesterday. We had good discussions, we had respectful discussions, and I just want to commend you all. We got some good work done yesterday. And now I will move over to our chair, Véronique, for the next part in our agenda.
Good morning again. We'll start the day with the council reports, as we haven't had the time to do them yesterday. Bonjour tout le monde.
Hello, everybody. This morning we will begin the day with the committee reports for the AFN, since we didn't have time to do it yesterday.
5 minutes maximum for your report. We'll have a little timer on the screen in front of the stage, so you can know where you are at. It's important. We have a lot of resolutions to go through, so we don't want to take more, to be more late in the schedule. I will first invite our first council, who are just in front of me. So it's the Knowledge Keeper Council. We have Dr. Gwendolyn Point, Gwen Point, and also Chuck Hume.
Yes, good morning. I'm the Chuck Hume, Yukon Territory, and one of the co-chairs for the Knowledge Keepers, along with Gwendolyn Point here. And I was actually born in the bush in the Yukon Territory and raised by my grandparents, and then off to residential school, which I spent a while there. But I'm from the Haines Junction area, and I belong to the Champagne and Asiac First Nations. And I sit with the Assembly of First Nations as the Elders Council. And also I sit as the Elders Council for the Champagne-Isiac First Nations. And each area is made up of 3 knowledge keepers from each of the AFN affiliated regions across Canada, representing male, female, and 2S LGBTQIA communities. The Knowledge Keepers Council function is to offer assistance, advice, and support to the National Chief, the AFN Executive Committee, and First Nations in Assembly. Each member of the Knowledge Keepers Council oversees at least one AFN sector and portfolio. And the Knowledge Keepers Council is currently comprised of the following members across Canada. I'm from the Yukon. I sit with Lorraine Nitro. I believe she's in here. And she sits with the Knowledge Keepers Council. From British Columbia, we have Dr. Gwendolyn Point, co-chair, along with myself, and Robert Joseph, and Simpelin Gonzalez. Northwest Territories, Grace Blake and John Bacall. Alberta, Ivy Rain and Lawrence Correll. Saskatchewan, Joe Quinzans. Manitoba, Muswagon, Mike Muswagon. Ontario, Barney Batiste. Quebec and Labrador, Bill Sunday. Prince Edward Island, Judy Clark. New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island, Eldon Bernard. Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, who just elected their new Knowledge Keepers Council, Dr. Calvin White and Barbara Sillaboy. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome our new Knowledge Keepers Council member, Barbara Sillaboy, who is representative for the Nova Scotia and Newfoundland alongside Dr. Calvin White. I welcome you to the Council and look forward to looking and working with you both. I will now hand over the mic to Knowledge Keeper and Council member Gwen Point, who will provide you with the rest of the Knowledge Keepers Council report, and I thank you very much.
Acknowledge our national chief, our regional chiefs, to all our leaders here and online. Elatis, Shashkoet Homo to Squee and Halkamel the Homo to Stalo. My traditional name is Shashkoet. The language we speak is Halkamelum, and I'm Stolo from British Columbia, representing as one of our knowledge keepers with my counterpart Simplian, to Iatalitzel, to Chuck for providing the first part of the report on our Knowledge Keepers' behalf. I'm going to provide you with the activities and accomplishments this past year. The Knowledge Keepers have re-engaged with portfolio discussions and have ensured that each AFN portfolio has an accompanying Knowledge Keeper to provide the guidance. The AFN continues to update the Knowledge Keepers on their portfolios at the annual General Assembly and at the Special Chiefs Assemblies. The Council continues to meet to ensure it is updated on current events impacting First Nations across the country. The Council continues to advocate for First Nations languages, traditions, and ceremonies, ensuring they thrive as a foundation for creating and maintaining stronger nations. And I really believe it's part of who we are as a people, that we start and acknowledge who we are and making a strong connection to the Creator in all that we do. The Council is essential to the AFN's day-to-day activities, keeping First Nations traditions, values, languages, and histories at the forefront. And we work to ensure the success and well-being of our youth. And we're so proud of our newly appointed youth to the table, to the executive. The Council continues engaging, supporting, and sharing information with elders throughout the regions. We've been busy updating our terms of reference. The terms of reference enables the Council to continue to provide the assistance and support of the AFN Secretariat, the AFN Executive, the Chiefs Committees, and the Councils. And this last year, both a chair of the Knowledge Keepers Council attends the AFN Executive meetings. These updates allow the Council to advance its work and continue to meet to review and update protocols, traditions, ceremonies, roles, and responsibilities. The Knowledge Keepers are assigned portfolios to each Council member, ensuring that each AFN portfolio is supported by a Knowledge Keeper who provides the necessary guidance and participates in sector meetings. For example, my background is education. I've done that throughout my life, throughout BC, and been involved locally, regionally, provincially, and nationally throughout the years. So it's my pleasure to sit with our Chiefs Committee on Education. We've worked alongside the First Nations Veterans Council, and the Knowledge Keepers publishes and distributes the Council flyer, a biannual newsletter designed to promote and share information about the Council's progress, activities, achievements of the Knowledge Keepers Council to the First Nations Assembly. In 2024-2025 fiscal year, the Knowledge Keepers will continue to provide support and guidance to the AFN Chiefs Committees, the AFN Secretariat, the AFN Executive Committee, ensuring that all activities move forward in a good way. The Knowledge Keepers will continue to meet as required, including at the AFN Special Chiefs Assembly in Ottawa, Ontario in December 2024. And as a good example, and I appreciate those that are up for the early morning ceremonies. We've always been spiritual people, and I really believe that the guiding force and our strong connection to who we are is one of the reasons why we've been able to continue, in my view, sometimes against all odds, to do the good work ATISTE asking special blessings on each and every one here today. Hi, Chepsia.
For the next council, we'll welcome the chairperson, Percy Joe, for the First Nation Veteran Council.
Good morning. Oh, that light's bright. Good sign. Good morning. My name is Percy Joe, Chair of the First Nations Council. I'm from Merritt, British Columbia. I represent in British Columbia. I'm standing here with the veterans Tim O'Lone from Northwest Territories and Al Knockwood, a veteran representing Nova Scotia. As established in the AFN Charter, the AFN First Nations Veterans Council is a vital organ of the AFN. The First Nations Veterans Council is established during the Special Chiefs Assembly in December 2020, where the First Nations in the Assembly passed the Resolution 02-2020 AFN First Nations Veterans Council. The Council's role and function is to promote the recognition and contributions of First Nations veterans in Canada made in all conflicts and allies of Canada. To educate the First Nations about the history of First Nations veterans. Develop and maintain a database recognizing First Nations veterans. The role of the function and also include engagement with Veterans Affairs Canada to advance the reconciliation and healing. The Council is comprised of all of First Nations veterans of Canada from the United States, as well as the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Canadian Department of National Defence, First Nations Peacekeeper Societies, First Nations police forces, and First Nations who have served other law enforcement agencies. First Nations veterans membership and representatives. The Council includes a membership from each of AFN's affiliated regions across Canada. Currently, the Council is comprised of 13 First Nations veterans, including Tim and myself, and Al Knockwood. Tim representing the Northwest Territories, and of course Al from Nova Scotia. The only region we don't represent, which is not included, is in Nunavut. The First Nations veteran has the following members. British Columbia, it's myself as a member. Northwest Territories, Tim O'Lone. Yukon, Carl Sidney. Alberta, Henry Rains. Saskatchewan, Emil Highway. Manitoba, Chief Lawrence Latundre. Ontario, Wendy Jocko and Gerald Jerry McGregor. New Brunswick, Eldon Bernard and Chief Terry Richardson. Nova Scotia, Al Knockwood, and also Debbie Essen. Newfoundland, Ken Bennett. Quebec, Omer Vallant, who's apparently absent at this time, attending the rodeo in Calgary, from what I understand. We would like to take this opportunity to welcome the 3 of our new Veteran Council members, Ken Bennett, who is the representative from Newfoundland, Debbie, the representative in Nova Scotia, along with Al Knockwood, and Omar Vollant, who is also now the new representative from Quebec. I welcome you to the group. We're looking forward to working with you and your input as knowledge of the veterans from your areas. I would like now to turn the mic over to Member Tim Olone to give the remainder of the report. Tim?
Masicho, Percy. As Percy mentioned, my name is Tim Olone. My traditional territory is the Sahtu region of the Northwest Territories. I'm humbled and honored to be here. I'll go through key activities and accomplishments from our council. Number 1, updating the Assembly First Nations AFN Charter. We'll provide through the Veterans Lens feedback to the Chiefs Committee on Charter Renewal. We are developing a terms of reference dedicated to our ongoing work. This terms of reference will ensure there's a unified voice for all of our veterans, raised by veterans, to ensure that concerns raised by veterans suffering from trauma of service and the impacts on their families. We're going to advance priorities through a new letter of understanding with Veterans Affairs. On April 3rd and 4th, as well as November of 2023, we met with Veterans Affairs to discuss and identify priorities, best practices to push forward on progress through this letter of understanding. We've also met with the Atlas Institute on Veterans and Families, the former Center for Excellence on PTSD. We also met with the Last Post Fund and also with the Department of National Defense. Each discussed and highlighted the need for First Nations-led approach. Indigenous peoples, we also need our culture to heal, and Veterans Affairs has failed us on that front. First Nation Veterans Council is currently drafting Phase 2 of this LOU, which aims to ensure the development of tangible outcomes and service delivery to effectively address the needs of First Nations veterans, families, and communities. And my coffee just kicked in, I think. We have begun a new project, a storytelling project called Stories of Our Veterans, that allows each of the council members to share their experiences during service. And the Assembly of First Nations has created a legacy board that showcases the council members' experiences at the office in Ottawa. We're also doing information sharing. We celebrated 75 years of peacekeeping missions. We developed an article, a shared history, shared responsibilities. And this article highlighted the importance of recognizing and honoring the contributions of First Nations veterans. Again, they have failed us in not doing so, and aims to ensure that all Canadians are included, especially First Nations veterans. Research update. We have researched and developed a historical record of First Nations veterans and soldiers who served in time of war, military conflicts, peace, and sadly, again, the Crown has not documented that very well. This research project is one of 4 pillars. The AFN has identified over 15,000 Indigenous individuals using reliable sources from Library and Archives Canada, the Canadian War Museum, Veterans Wall of Honor, and many other sources as well. Lastly, my colleague Alan Knockwood had the privilege of going to the 80th anniversary of D-Day, the commemoration just last month. Veterans Council will continue to guide the AFN as needed throughout the next fiscal year, including Special Chiefs Assembly in December. We will continue to review our outreach activities, continue to work with establish a national record of First Nations soldiers who enlisted and served, and we will continue to conduct meetings between the Veterans Council and Veterans Affairs to develop further work implementing the 4 pillars. And we will continue to plan our commemoration for 2024-2025. I want to say merci cho. Thank you very much.
My name is Alan Knockwood. I am from the Siboney Reserve, our community in Nova Scotia. I am one of the regional representatives to the AFN Veterans Council. I'm here to speak on behalf of the AFN First Nations Veterans Council regarding our resolution number 69. We agree that the First Nations veterans require additional support that is culturally relevant. Our First Nations Council acknowledges that we are not unanimous in our vote for this resolution. For years, the Council has worked with the Minister of Veterans Affairs Canada. In April of last year, we signed a letter of understanding establishing our formal relationship. The First Nations Veterans Council has immense concerns about the Burns Way partnership. Partnership is working. In our opinion, Burns Way will diminish the fiduciary obligation of the Crown to First Nations veterans. First Nations Veterans Council has meetings with Burns Way, and they have provided the presentations to the Council. However, we have raised our concerns with them, but Burns Way did not address our concerns. The First Nations Council leaves you with these words. The Veterans Council will respect the vote of the chiefs, so all of us can move forward. Ladio. I'm Sidnogoma. Ladio. Thank you so much.
We've received a notice that it can be hard to understand what people are saying on stage when there's a lot of noise in the room. So we kindly ask you that if you have side discussions that you must have, either do it very quietly or maybe take them outside the room. On a reçu une petite notification que ça peut être difficile d'entendre.
We've been told that it's hard to hear on the stage what people are saying when there's a lot of noise in the room. So if you really need to have discussion, do it very quietly or outside of the room. So thank you for that.
We'll continue with the next council, which is the Women's Council, First Nations Women's Council, and we will welcome the Grand Chief Anna Betty Ashnipainskum. As well as all the council.
Chair. Good morning. My name is Anna Betty Yachnibanashkam, and I serve as a Deputy Grand Chief for Anishinaabe Nation. First of all, I want to acknowledge the sacred items that are amongst us as we gather here in the Kahnawake territory. And also I want to acknowledge our knowledge keepers and our LGBTQ Council, our Veterans Council, and all of you as chiefs and proxies. Chimingwech for being here and all those that are watching. Before I begin, I would like to have each of our council members come up to the mic to introduce themselves.
Good morning, chiefs, Grand Chief, National Chief and Regional Chiefs. My name is Brenda Vanguard. I'm the Treaty 6 rep from Alberta. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chief Joanne Miles. I'm from the Flat Bay Mi'kmaq Band representing Newfoundland. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kursawa. My Northern Tashoni name is Eke Ewa, meaning caribou hoof noise. I belong to the Kwamladun First Nations in Whitehorse, Yukon, and I represent the Yukon region.
Good morning. I am Brenda Goche, and I represent the Northwest Territories.
Willexipouk, Nadia Robertson, porte-parole pour la région du Québec.
Spokesperson for the Quebec region.
Louis and Motherland Sark, or Madeleine, Motherland Geege, as my elders would call me at home. I represent the Abegwed territory, but I'm also band counselor for Lennox Island First Nation.
I'm Melissa Moses, Women's Representative for the Union of BC Indian Chiefs, but I'm first here as proxy for BC AFN Woman Rep Louisa Hoosty-Jones.
Wiliexikbu Nindalos Dian Delewit Sabaganagadik. I'm a proxy chief for Sabaganagadik. I'm a counselor for my community. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
And I also wanted to mention Chief Connie Big Eagle, who represents the Saskatchewan region, and she's unable to be with us this morning. Okay, in our council, we have certain items that we have as highlighted as our priorities. First and foremost, of course, is the work that we do with the MMIW-2S, and it's very important for us to ensure that we have those international relationships. So we have a trilateral table that we are working with Mexico and the United States. And so it's so important for us to build those relationships to gather support, and as well as to learn and teach each other. We also continue to work on this initiative within the homelands that we are from. We also, in terms of a national table as well, we continue to advocate for implementation of the calls for justice. And we take these initiatives and priorities back to our homelands as well, whether it's looking at and working on the policing and health. Like, those are also important, and we make those a priority in terms of the work that we are fulfilling within our regions. The other priority that we have is to promote and to support our sisters who are in leadership. And we are grateful for the support that we get from our AFN technical team. We have a great working relationship with them. And moving forward, we want to encourage the AFN executive to work with us and to support us and to come and talk with us. We're always willing to do that, because we know that the work that we have within our priorities is also a priority in the regions that you represent. Our Women's Council also shares the message of ensuring that we are inclusive of all peoples. And we ensure that within the dialogue and within any documentation that we have that inclusive vocabulary within those documents and those tools that we utilize. I just wanted to mention that there is a resolution that we have placed as an emergency resolution, and we're hoping that it will be able to be brought to you as leadership, and that is to criminalize the forced sterilization of women. It is not something that has just taken place in the past. It continues to happen at present day, and we are hoping that this resolution will be presented through this forum. If not, we will ensure that it comes to the forum in the future. So those are our comments and our presentation at this time, and we're always very grateful that we have an opportunity to present and also to be part of your gatherings. It is so important that our women be able to gather and have their resources to be able to fulfill their mandate. And we encourage, again, the leadership, U.S. leadership, and also the AFN executive to support us. Miigwech, Martin.
And now, as a former member of this council, it is my great pleasure to introduce the new co-chairs of the AFN National Youth Council, Véronique Picard and Isaiah Bernard, who are also accompanied by the rest of the members.
Dalia Deluisi and Isaiah Bernard, Delawe Bolodek Unlawegedi. Hi, I'm Isaiah Bernard from the beautiful First Nation of Bolodek First Nation. I am the newly elected co-chair of the AFN National Youth Council. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you. I'm going to pass on to my co-chair.
Hi again. I'm Véronique Picard, and I'm the youth co-chair. I've been elected with Isaiah on Sunday. As newly elected co-chairs, we feel privileged to continue the work that has been done by previous co-chairs and hold the space for youth representatives to give their perspective in order to contribute to the intergenerational discussions on significant matters within our First Nations. That's very important to us, and we want to recognize the dedication of our youth members who consistently show up to exercise our inherent rights by advocating with respect and strength towards self-determination. So thank you to all our youth members that are always there on different committees. And we also want to take a little moment to recognize the work of Rosalie Labillois. She was a youth co-chair for 5 years, and we want to take the time to recognize what she's done to the council. And we'll quickly go through our what we've done throughout the year. So there was an AFN Languages and Learning Youth Gathering in Wendake in March that was organized. So that was a very big event for our youth council, as it gathered First Nations, youth First Nations that are not necessarily part of the Youth Council from everywhere around Canada to discuss education and languages, especially in kindergarten, grade 12, and post-secondary education. So that was a very inspiring event. Afterwards, there was also the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, to which I attended as a representative for the AFN. This year, for the UN Permanent Forum, the main focus was on enhancing the perspectives of youth, of Indigenous youth. So that was part of the process. I brought up an issue that was very important to me and to as well the AFN. Concerning food sovereignty, and I won't take more time. I will pass on the mic already.
Sorry about this. Technology is not my friend today. So back in October 2023, the former interim national chief, as well as the current Right Deadly regional chief of New Brunswick, along with the former co-chairs, went to the One Youth Summit that was held in Belfast, Ireland. While they were there, they passed motions and solutions and opinions there, and this resulted in an executive AFN committee moving to accept AFN Resolution 103/2023 to support a One World Summit 2024. Supports the AFN's participation in the One World Summit in Montreal, Quebec, scheduled for September 18th to the 21st. Along with that, back in the February 13th, another colleague of ours, Taya, who is not here at the moment, she participated in the First People's Wellness Circle hosted a national wellness gathering by Indian residential school survivors in Vancouver, and when she has a lot of heavy stories, good stories, so if you ever see her, ask her about that. She can tell you all about it. So next steps for this, our council is during the 2024-2025 council, we're continuing to review our TOR that we just recently passed. We recently passed a code of ethics. We want to give our youth a voice at the table with you guys and give you guys our opinions, because I'm going to go a little off script here, and I got asked by chiefs before, how can we get youth involved? And I just say to them, it's like, well, first thing you do is listen. That's the easiest thing you can do is listen. Don't throw money at the solution. Just listen to them and they let their voice be heard. And I know, for example, in my area, a lot of youth suffer mental wellness issues and mental health, and we need more mental health support in our areas, because in my area alone, in the last 2 months, in my small community, we lost 2 youth and the lack of mental health support. With that being said, Walalio, Namotas, and I hope to see you guys all. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
So we'll continue with the last report. I welcome the 2S LGBTQ AI Plus Council with Chief Alan Polchis.
Tanse, Miyogi Zagao, Gakyao Nawakiam Kamandik Kitamaskatanawao, Head Person Tyler George Nitzigasan, Ochapwes Kakshue Nation, Treaty for Territory Ochinya, Nanaskamatin Kichimanatu, Nanaskaman Kitayak, Oskayak, and Okamau. Hello, good day. All of my relations, I greet all of you. My name is Head Person Tyler George. I am from Ochapwes Kakshue Nation on Treaty for Territory. I'm grateful and thankful for the Creator. I'm grateful for the Kitayak, the elders, the youth, and the leaders today. I'm currently an elected leader for Ochapwes Kakshue Nation, and I currently serve as the AFN National 2S LGBTQ Plus Council for the Assembly of First Nations. Nanaskaman, I want to start by acknowledging the territory of the Mohawk Nation. It's an honor to be leading the AFN 2S+ Council and advocating for the Two-Spirit and gender diverse community. I want to acknowledge our interim co-chairperson, Dwayne Gaston Acoin, and all the current members of the council that are up here standing with me today. Some of the work that our council has been doing is, as we know, the AFN 2S+ Council was established by resolution passed unanimously by the Chiefs in Assembly in 2021. The realities and lived experiences of the 2S+ First Nations people are unique, and we require our own safe spaces, our place in community, and our voice within the decision-making structures and the processes within AFN. Each and every one of you have a Two-Spirit Plus person, a part of your family or community. As leaders, it's important to be unified, to stand together, welcoming your Two-Spirit people back into the community. The 2S LGBTQIA+ Council is a vital organ within the AFN. The history is important, and we must reflect on that. As First Nations people, we know as Indigenous people, we have shown so much resiliency towards all the hardships that our people have faced. The discrimination, the harm our ancestors, our cookums, mushums, parents, relatives that have been through. You know, the laws the government that created, the laws the government created against our people, not being able to ceremony, not being able to get an education, not being able to hire a lawyer to defend ourselves. We know that story. And you know, being First Nation and now being Two-Spirit, we must continue to show that resiliency together. Our kids, our youth, and the 7 generations ahead. Two-Spirit people continue to face discrimination to this day. The marginalization and the violence because of the government legislations that are passing that violate not only our human rights, but our inherent rights as Indigenous people. Today, we stand together to confront these injustices, to create those safe spaces where Two-Spirit people can thrive without fear, where our kids can see leaders like these people on the stage today. Alongside the former National Chief, Joanne, we have publicly denounced the New Brunswick, Alberta, and Saskatchewan harmful anti-2S LGBTQIA+ policies. We publicly put out a statement. The AFN 2S+ Council has and will continue to make progress in being advocates for our young people. Some of the work that we've been doing, we've been a part of the federal provincial roundtable discussions on MMIWG2S. We've been advocating for our youth within the education systems, advocating for the calls to justice. In March of 2024, our council gathered in St. John's, Newfoundland to develop our strategic plan. Our plan outlines the vision, values, and the principles that will guide our work, and we identified 4 key priority action items, including truth-telling, to address the role colonization has played in the marginalization and displacement of 2S+ people, the laws that have been created to hold down 2S relatives. We're moving forward the AFN 2S Council, ensuring the council has the tools and resources necessary to make effective change. Collaboration and relationship building. The AFN councils, governments, regional organizations, and First Nations communities need that relationship. Education, truth-telling transition to combat the intolerance movement in Canada, and we have our oral traditional stories that solidify our place within communities that need to be told. The strategic plan will be a living document that is responsive to the unique and dynamic needs of the 2S+ community. Looking ahead, we're wanting to fill the vacant positions. Currently, we have Ontario, Newfoundland, and Prince Edward Island that need appointments. We've assigned portfolios to the council members within the AFN areas. In embracing two-spirit people among us, we celebrate the diversity and richness of our culture. We recognize inclusivity is not merely an aspiration, but a fundamental aspect of who we are as Indigenous people. It's our duty, your duty as leaders, to ensure that every member of your community feels seen, respected, and valued. The AFN 2S Council remains committed to its efforts to support initiatives concerning missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and 2S plus people, and advocating for the calls for justice with a specific focus on the 2S plus community. As we move forward, we're committed to supporting two-spirit people in every way we can, advocating for funding so our communities can create the safe spaces for our youth. This means providing and promoting understanding, education, and advocating for their rights and well-being. Our communities are stronger and more vibrant when we uplift and support all of our members. We hope our Okamaus, leaders, chiefs will stand unified with us and the work that we're doing in creating meaningful change. One of the items we wanted to see as a council was representation on this stage. We got confirmation with the next AGA, our 2S relatives will be visibly represented up here. So I want to thank you for the time and the opportunity to address this assembly of the work being carried out by our 2S Plus Council. With that, kinanaskmatin ikose hai hai.
So thank you to all of our chairs, co-chairs, for their presentations of the council reports. It's important to know what work's being done by our brothers, sisters, and cousins in advancing the rights of our people. So thank you for all your information and your knowledge sharing. We will now be heading into a 30-minute plenary on First Nations policing. We have a few guests with us, but to start us off, I would turn to Regional Chief Picard for opening statements.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Cedric. Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to see you again this morning. I will probably indicate from the get-go that we're very happy to have such a broad participation in this assembly. There were a lot of challenges regarding organization, knowing that our region only had a few months to prepare for these 3 days.
Good morning, everyone. To the chairs and members of the 4 councils who are also represented at the executive level, to the national chief, my colleagues of the executive, to all of you chiefs and delegates. Certainly want to acknowledge that we are on traditional Indigenous unceded lands again this morning. There is important to serve that reminder. I had notes prepared, but I'll put those notes on the side and just maybe share a few words. I totally, fully respect the duties that I have to as a regional chief, and certainly want to commend my colleagues from the executive and I'm certain that no one here at the head table is looking for, come to these jobs looking for rewards, but yet they come on their own. And it's certainly true on the issue of justice and policing, and certainly want to acknowledge my colleague from British Columbia, Regional Chief Terry Teegee, and we both share the portfolio on justice and policing. Rewards come through what I see as the commitment and dedication of a number of individuals. We've been putting much effort and energy in setting up a task force over the last 3 years, comprised of leadership, chiefs, but also experts and representatives of different associations across the country, both regional and national, on the issue of policing. And they're probably better suited than I to present the issues at stake with regards to policing services and having those services recognized as an essential service. We have one resolution, 42, in the package, very straightforward, and a resolution that intends to reaffirm previous positions that you took as an assembly. I think it's very important, and that resolution would only serve as a reminder of the positions that we have to acknowledge and respect and deliver in the face of what I would call opposition from all levels of government. If the remarks from Minister LeBlanc, the minister responsible for public safety at the federal level, could demonstrate the kind of challenges that we have, then I think the presentations that you will hear shortly will only serve yet another reminder of the challenges before us. So I think it's very important that we pay close attention to the various positions that will be presented, and I have no doubt that the resolution put forward as a follow-up to the presentations is very clear in terms of the journey that we have to pursue on policing services as essential services. So I want to be, in closing, be thankful to the members of the task force, a number of individuals deeply dedicated and committed from across the country. And one more thing, I know this is streamlined proceedings, and I certainly want to be my respect and greetings to all of those citizens from their respective territories following the agenda this week, the AGA this week. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Merci, Chef Régional Picard.
Thank you, Regional Chief Picard.
We have Kaya Liu, Executive Director for Indigenous Police Chiefs of Ontario, as well as James Killeen, Vice President for the same organization.
Good morning. My name is James Killeen. I'm the Police Chief for the UCCM Anishinaabe Police Service out on Manitoulin Island. I'm also the Vice President of IPCO, which is the Indigenous Police Chiefs of Ontario, and I'm a member of the Mohawks of Akwesasne. I'm here with Kaya Liu, who is the Executive Director of IPCO. He's also the previous Chief of Police for Treaty 3 Police Service, and he has an expansive career in policing. IPCO represents the 9 self-administered Indigenous police services across Ontario. We serve 86 communities, including some of the most remote in Ontario. IPCO was founded in 2019, and the reason that IPCO formed was to act in unity on community safety. In the past, there was a divide and conquer approach with the Indigenous police services across Ontario, and IPCO looked to rectify that in bringing us together. I'm going to give you a brief update on our Canadian Human Rights Tribunal challenge that we have and our injunction update. So IPCO has made major progress combining advocacy and using the court system to get what we need, not just for our police services, but for the communities that we serve. We are seeking justice for decades of chronic underfunding of Indigenous public safety. Last year, IPCO launched a human rights complaint against Canada. Also last year, we successfully won a federal court injunction, which forced Canada to continue funding 3 Indigenous police services after we refused to accept discriminatory funding under the First Nation and Inuit policing program. So prior to me being the Chief of Police of UCCM, I worked for 23 years with Greater Sudbury Police Service in a municipal setting, and I can tell you that my entire time in municipal services, I never felt threatened that our funding would get cut off. And it was a first for me, and it was actually terrifying, not just for me as the leader of the police service, but for all of my officers and my civilian staff, and for the communities we served. So no other communities across Canada that are policed by provincial or municipal or federal police ever have the threat of having their funding cut off and their police service disbanded. But we did face that. And that was as a result of us filing that human rights complaint. As you know, Canada has a long pattern of refusing to negotiate funding for Indigenous community safety. These bargaining tactics are central to our human rights complaint. And these are going to be heard within the next 6 months in January 2025. So it's coming up very quickly. It's always the same with the government. They come to our communities with pre-written funding agreements, and they threaten that if we don't sign, they'll cut off funding. Coincidentally, last week, UCCM Police hosted a fish fry, and we invited our past employees, which included 2 of our previous chiefs of police. And as I spoke with them, they spoke about repeated stories of having threats of having the funding cut off to the police service. And they lauded IPCO for its push forward and said they wish that they had had that back in their time as chiefs of police so that they could have pushed the issues that needed to be pushed forward. So last year it was Anishinaabe Police Service, Treaty 3 Police Service, and UCCM that all said no to signing those agreements because of those discriminatory terms and conditions. We did so with the benefit of our strong political leadership. People such as Grand Chief Abram Benedict from the Chiefs of Ontario, UCCMM Tribal Chair Patsy Corbière, and all of my chiefs from my area all supported me. That also included Grand Chief Linda Dubosky of Anishinaabe Nation, who at the time was the Chief of Chiging, as well as Ogidjita Kavanaugh at Grand Council Treaty 3. And all of the chiefs of police from those 3 different police services and their territories. Thanks to their support, we stood strong, and the federal court sided with us and restored our funding. In May, we marched with the Chiefs of Ontario regarding the new Police Services Act, which is the Community Safety Policing Act. In this new act, it had the exclusion of First Nation laws enforcement. So we are holding that that is the same right, that we cannot support one side and then switch it over to the other side. So we are saying that we have to stay with that. We have to keep supporting our inherent jurisdiction and pushing for that for our community safety. The courts recently extended its order for our funding until next year. That means Canada must continue funding UCCM, APS, and Treaty 3 Police Service and suspend the most restrictive funding terms which block us from getting funding for legal costs and infrastructure financing. As mentioned, IPCO's human rights complaint against Canada goes to a hearing in January 2025 at the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal. We are cautiously optimistic. As last year, the federal court judge, Judge Gasco, said that we had a high likelihood of winning our case. I'm miigwech for this opportunity, and I'm going to turn it over to Kai Lu.
Good morning, Chief Killeen. Thank you. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge and recognize the Eagle staffs that are up on the stage here and the sacred items, and as well as my distinguished panelists and the regional chiefs. My name is Kai Lu. I'd like to talk a bit about our relationship with our communities. I know there is a resolution coming up for a vote here, and I can tell you the resolution reflects what we have consistently been hearing from our communities and leadership. 2 points. 1, Indigenous community safety can only be guaranteed if Canada recognizes your inherent jurisdictions over your own safety. 2, that in Canada, for the province to decide what is right for you is exactly why communities have struggled for so long. I have over 37 years of policing, 4 years as chief of police for the Gananoque Police Service located in Ontario, 7 years as the chief of police of the city of Cobourg, and then the last 4 years as the chief of police for the Treaty 3 Police Service. In all my years of policing, I have never seen anything like the discriminatory underfunding of Indigenous public safety. These services are asked to do more with less. In fact, at times they're asked to do more with nothing. And communities must live with the profound risk caused by the lack of resources to address challenges like the opiate crisis and street gangs. For example, last year, when IPCO went to court to force Canada to change the First Nation Inuit policing terms and conditions that prevented us from having specialized units, basic units that non-Indigenous police services or communities take for granted, such as drug units, organized crime, K9, and others. Canada only lifted these restrictions after we sued in federal court. And it's unfortunate that it takes court decisions or human rights complaints for government to change policies and directions. Now we're hearing that Canada, as you did yesterday with Public Minister LeBlanc, wants to remove inherent jurisdictions over the safety of Indigenous people out of the proposed policing legislation. Every leader that I speak to are saying the same thing, in that inherent jurisdiction over community safety is non-negotiable. We heard Minister LeBlanc yesterday promising our police services will be designated essential service, promising that the legislation will include sustainable funding. Of course, these are important. We all agree that essential service designation is long overdue. We all agree that Canada needs to improve funding. But I keep hearing the same thing from my communities and community leaders. If Canada moves ahead with legislation that fails to recognize your jurisdiction over your own safety, then you will not have the policing you deserve. So to conclude, at IPCO, our job is to listen to the communities and our leaders. I can only tell you what I hear. Inherent jurisdiction over community safety is non-negotiable. If jurisdiction is removed from legislation, if it is moved to the Department of Justice, as we've heard yesterday, then communities must be afraid that Canada and the provinces will continue to dictate what model of policing you are allowed to have. Our commitment is to deliver adequate, effective, and culturally responsive policing. To do that, we listen to you. And today, I was asked to share with you what we're hearing from our communities about your right to determine your own path forward on community safety. We just want to deliver the policing you deserve, like any other non-Indigenous community take for granted. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kai and James. And just to as a point of a comment, a resolution's been mentioned. We will be going through these resolutions in the afternoon. Our next speaker to update us on police litigation is Julie McGregor, AFN Senior Legal Counsel. Julie.
Thank you and good morning, chiefs and leadership. My name is Julie McGregor. I'm from Kitigan-Zibi. I'm a Algonquin from Kitigan-Zibi, and I'm the Senior Legal Counsel at the Assembly of First Nations. You just heard from the two speakers before me a lot about the litigation that's ongoing in Ontario with the Indigenous Police Chiefs of Ontario. And there is similar litigation going on throughout the country. There are 36 self-administered police services. And it's not a lot, but I will tell you the majority of them are also in litigation with Public Safety Canada over their funding. It's remarkable how similar the litigation for the policing is turning out to be, how similar it is to the child welfare litigation. And as we know, as we talk about child welfare at this assembly, all of that work was 20 years of battling it out, 20 years or plus of battling it out at the tribunal, the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, in the courts, in the systems to have our, to have equitable funding and recognition of our rights. And it's the same thing for policing. You've heard Kailu speak about this, about how we have to have jurisdiction over our policing because we need to be able to determine for ourselves what we need in terms of community safety. It's been, I don't know how many years since we've had either the RCMP or the police, or provincial police services in our communities, and it's all mostly led to violent and tragic incidences occurring. We know that Indigenous police services, First Nations police services have been around for 40 years, and their record is much better in terms of, community, culturally appropriate policing that serves our community, that listens to the people, and that ensures the safety of our communities. So as I say this, just to do a quick, I don't want to recap what's already been said about the litigation, but just to say that there is the majority of First Nations self-administered police services have now filed complaints with the Canadian Human Rights Commission. IPCO's complaint has been referred to the tribunal for a hearing. And also in Quebec, the Quebec Chiefs of Police Association have filed a complaint, and we heard just this week that the Alberta First Nation Chiefs of Police have also filing a complaint with the Commission. There's also litigation working its way through the court system as well, because tribunal decisions have been made in Quebec with respect to funding of the police services. Specifically, the community of Mistouiash brought a Canadian human rights complaint, which was referred to the tribunal, and the tribunal found that the funding of that community's police services was discriminatory. The human rights complaint and the tribunal decision is being appealed by governments currently, but also just recently, the Supreme Court of Canada heard the appeal from the Quebec Court of Appeal for Mistouiash's case on a contract issue that the Quebec government appealed the fact that they believed they didn't have a duty to uphold the honor of the Crown with respect to funding of First Nations policing. And they don't believe that the First Nations have an inherent right or a constitutional right or a treaty right to self-governance over policing. Again, this is very similar to what we saw in the Child Welfare C-92 reference, where provinces and territories don't want to respect or uphold First Nations rights. So we're waiting for a decision of the Supreme Court, should be coming down within the year. So those cases are also winding their way through the courts. I don't want to take up too much time. I know we have a hard stop at 10:30, but just to say that in terms of what you heard previously, we have a resolution going forward to support jurisdiction. We heard from the minister yesterday, as he said that, you know, they're proposing what they call a two-track process, where the issues surrounding jurisdiction, self-governance, rights would be left to another day, and they would focus on essential services. But I would urge you to look at Public Safety Canada's publication, which they call the Essential Services, Essential Elements document. This is a document that they've created, which they intend to turn into drafting instructions for the legislation. And it's not just a matter of not willing to deal with our rights. It's a matter of the provinces having jurisdiction over certain matters, including the creation of future First Nations police services, future First Nations police boards, and funding. So if you want to take a look at that document, we have copies downstairs at the trade show. And I would urge you all as chiefs and leadership to take a strong look at that, because it's a misnomer to just say it's an issue of one track being essential services and one track being jurisdiction. It's a bit more issues with bringing in the provinces and the territories. And I would tell you from the litigation perspective, the provinces and the territories are fighting us tooth and nail on this issue. So if they are granted any further delegation of power under this legislation, it will be very difficult for First Nations police forces moving forward. So, Miigwech, I'm going to turn it over to Grand Chief.
Thank you, Julie, for that update. So that'll bring a term to this part of our agenda. And now for our next section, I would like to invite my co-chair, Weena.
Thank you, Cedric. And thank you very, very much for this panel. And thank you very much for adapting your time, because we have a guest, so we had a hard stop at 10:30. For our guest speaker, we'll have 30 minutes with Gary Anandasangari, Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations. He'll speak to you for a certain period of time, and then the remainder of the 30 minutes will be for question and answers. And I want to remind you quickly here that it's not because you're in line at the microphone that we'll have time to get to you, so thank you very much for your understanding of that. And after Minister Anandasangari, we'll have the guest speaker, Terry Duguid, Parliamentary Secretary. And so for 15 minutes. So on that, I want to now invite Minister Anandasangari to the stage to speak to you for the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Sego, Kwe, Bozo, Ainin, Tanzi, hello and bonjour. Welcome everyone, and I would like to thank the Gane Genaka for hosting us on their traditional territory this week. I want to acknowledge the knowledge keeper, Shan Kichikake, for his work and for the powerful remarks and the honesty and insight that they've given us. Thank you. I would like to thank National Chief Cindy Woodhouse Nepinak for this invitation and for her hospitality. And I'm also truly grateful to be here with all of you today. Let me acknowledge some of the colleagues that are here joining us. Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister, Terry Duguid, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, Jaime Batiste, Jamie Schmale, Member of Parliament, and my opposition critic for the Conservative Party, as well as Senator Michel Audette, who represents Quebec. Je tiens également à remercier le chef national.
I would like to thank National Chief Woodhouse Nepinak for her invitation and her hospitality. I'm very grateful to have been invited here today.
It's clear that we have a valuable opportunity to strengthen our relationship, advance solutions to affirm rights, and improve quality of life for First Nations. Together, we're entering a new era of Indigenous relations, and we're building true nation-to-nation relationships. As many of you know, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples has guided our department's work, especially since the passing of the United Nations Declarations Act. Some of the specific efforts reflected in the action plan include working with First Nations partners on our shared priorities. This includes reforming the specific claims process for addressing past wrongs, redesigning the process for adding lands to reserve, and creating viable alternatives to the Indian Act to advance reconciliation and First Nation self-determination. We've been collaborating with Indigenous partners to put the Declaration into action, to respect and uphold Indigenous rights and advance Indigenous visions of self-determination. Just 2 weeks ago, I was in British Columbia to take important and historic steps to further nation-to-nation relationships. With the Kitsum-Kalem and Kitselas First Nations, along with the federal government and the province of British Columbia, we initialed draft treaties, a large step forward in re-establishing the right to self-determination and self-governance. And we will do this again in 2 weeks with the Comox First Nation. We signed a memorandum of understanding with the Cloquet First Nation to address community priorities, including an unfulfilled 2003 land transfer agreement. This MOU was about working to do the right thing and earning the community's trust. We are committed to doing that. We celebrated the 10th anniversary of the Chakotay Nation's historical decision on title, and we renewed our agreement with $39 million in new funding. We're listening, taking action, and working to address historical wrongs in partnership with your nations. In November 2022, the Assembly of First Nations and the Government of Canada formally launched the co-development process for specific claims reform. This is built on the groundwork laid by the Assembly of First Nations. As part of the reform process, I'm pleased that both the AFN and my department recently posted a discussion paper on a proposed independent center for the resolution of specific claims on their websites for comments and feedback. And I hope many of you provide that valuable feedback. Another example of us working together is a redesign of the addition to reserve policy. We're reviewing your feedback, and we will continue to pursue meaningful engagement that fits your needs and priorities. This includes welcoming the discussions and decisions you make at the AGA in regard to co-developing policy options. Strengthening our relations is a theme that resonates because it speaks to the core of the federal government's work with the Assembly of First Nations. Renforcer nos relations est un thème qui
Reinforcing our relations is a theme that resonates because it's at the heart of the federal government's actions with First Nations.
Last 9 years, and this includes securing funding to communities to address colonial legacy of residential schools and working towards healing, establishing the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, ensuring that much overdue people apology, and advancing child and family services and those who should oversee it. We are moving towards real long-term reform based on the notion of self-determination. This means doing the hard work on our end to make sure we are listening, working in true partnership and getting it right, so we can see solidified change in the future that no one government can ever roll back. Reconciliation and our renewed path of working together only moves forward. We cannot go backwards. Over the past 9 years, our government, various ministers and ministries have set joint tables with the AFN and community leadership to work through our shared challenges and priorities. Last month, several federal cabinet ministers and I met with the national chief and regional chiefs to identify and prioritize to improve the quality of life for First Nations and to close long-standing socioeconomic gaps through the permanent bilateral mechanism. This meeting provided a chance to discuss critical issues that will guide our relationship, including First Nations policing, closing the housing and infrastructure gap, child welfare, education, climate leadership, and economic reconciliation, among other things. I look forward to continuing this work at the next leaders meeting in the fall of 2024. Last year's announcement of Canada's collaborative modern treaty implementation policy marked a major milestone and a new phase in our relationship as well. It set the direction for making progress on shared priorities, including establishing the Intergovernmental Leaders Forum and co-developing the independent oversight mechanism, the Commissioner of Modern Treaty Implementation. Consultations with modern treaty partners on the draft legislative proposal to establish the Commissioner is well underway. These efforts will go a long way in ensuring that we live up to our commitments and responsibilities made under the modern treaties. Moving to another critical milestone reached, this year marks 5 years since the release of the final report of the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. We all agree that this is a national crisis. Every Indigenous woman, girl, two-spirit, and gender-diverse person in Canada deserves to be safe, honored, and live free from violence. Since the launch of the inquiry, we have made efforts to advance the federal work outlined in the Calls to Justice. On June 3, 2024, the latest Federal Pathway Annual Progress Report was released and highlighted progress over the past year, including 47 emergency shelters, 52 community safety projects, reliable internet for over 3,000 Indigenous households, and improving midwifery services and infrastructure in close to 100 Indigenous communities and organizations. While we continue to review progress with partners, the majority of calls to justice in which the federal government is involved have been actioned. An example of this is a mobile birth center program in 6 nations of the Grand River. We will continue to be relentless in our push to see these calls to completion. Budget 2024 is building on this tangible progress through additional proposed investments to address the calls to justice in areas such as housing, health, addressing anti-Indigenous racism in healthcare, culture, and First Nations and Inuit policing. The Government of Canada and Manitoba recently announced a partnership to co-develop a pilot red dress alert system with Indigenous partners. This initiative is supported and identified in Budget 2024. And we're providing funds towards the Government of Manitoba to support its search of the Prairie Green landfill for 2 murdered First Nation women. This too was long overdue, but we are so pleased to now have a willing partner in the new Manitoba government who are committed to doing the right thing. We acknowledge the grief and pain of families who have been missing or their lost ones. Personally, since becoming minister, meeting with frontline workers, local support organizations, and families and survivors and advocates, I'm motivated by their strength and resilience. Our priority, as outlined in the federal pathway, is to provide assistance in services for the healing journeys of individual Indigenous family members and survivors in whatever form that is meaningful and helpful to them. While federal investments are important, honoring our legal obligations to First Nations and working together to renew relationships are key to addressing historical wrongs with Indigenous peoples in Canada. In June, the Federal Court of Canada approved the distribution protocol for the first claims process for the First Nations Child and Family Services, Jordan's Principle, and Trout Class Settlement Agreement. marking an important milestone towards compensating children and families who are harmed by the discriminatory undertaking of the First Nations Child and Family Services Program and those impacted by the federal government's narrow definition of Jordan's principle. My colleague, Minister Haidu, continues to lead the critical work of child welfare reform and will continue to work together with First Nations leadership to ensure the rights of their children and communities are respected and upheld. As we continue to address the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action, we are guided by the strength of survivors and their families, including those who continue to live with the painful legacy of residential schools. I note just this week, Cross Lake becomes the latest community in which the search for their loved ones have materialized. The shared journey of reconciliation continues to evolve, but one aspect will never change. We must ensure that this significant part of our history is never forgotten. Ce parcours commun de réconciliation.
This shared pathway of reconciliation is continuing to evolve, but one aspect will never change. We must ensure that these important stages of our history never be forgotten.
The principles set down by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission through political will, joint leadership, collaboration, building trust, accountability, and transparency. I want to emphasize here in front of all of you that I, alongside our Deputy Minister, Valerie Gideon, who is here in the room today, are committed to doing the work needed to see our relationship grow stronger and create outcomes for First Nations. In a time where the system still isn't working quite right, racism being live and well, and appalling claims of denialism have broken into the mainstream. It is in this moment where we must reaffirm our commitment and continue to strengthen our relationship. It wasn't that long ago when First Nations did not have a willing and honest partner in the federal government. That will never again be the case in our relationship, and I promise you that. It may not always be easy, and it certainly hasn't been perfect, but we will be here to work in true partnership in order to make real progress and advance reconciliation. And we cannot let anyone take us backwards. Thank you once again for welcoming me to your annual General Assembly, and I look forward to strengthening our relationship. Welali o ni wa miigwech. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Okay, so for the remainder of this session, so for the next 14 minutes, we have time to take questions. What we propose is to go and to take 3 at a time, so three at a time, and then we'll have a response from the minister. We'll go to microphone 1, 2, and come back to 1. So over to microphone 1, please.
Good morning. Vera Mitchell, Chief Poplar River First Nation. Thank you, Honourable Minister, for coming to see us today. But I want to express my disappointment in your statement of reforming child and family services. Because I don't know if you're aware, but in Manitoba, child and family services, all the agencies are mandated by the province. They are not accountable to our First Nation communities or people. They own the agencies, and they're directed. We don't have a mandate in child and family services. So why do we want to assist the province in reforming a child welfare system that is broken? We have been talking about this for the last 20 years. We're never going to be able to reform child welfare unless the jurisdiction is given to our people. I want you, if you may, go and read the Indian Act. You have the capability has the Indian agent to give us jurisdiction of child welfare. And while you're at it, give us gaming too. Thank you.
Miigwech for that. Microphone number 2, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Cheryl Kasmer, proxy for Nasukan Joe Pierre of in British Columbia. Minister Ananda Sangari, it's good to see you again, and thank you for providing us with the update. However, I have to disagree with you on a certain matter, and that's in relation to progress that you've stated has been made on the calls to justice. There are 231 calls to justice, and from what we understand and what we've been updated on is that only 2 of those calls to justice have been completed. And to me, that is a shame. That is shameful. Indigenous women and girls continue to go missing, continue to be subjected to discrimination, and continue to be subjected to violence. And when we have only 2 calls to justice that have been achieved of the 231, that just sends a message to the rest of Canadians that Indigenous women and girls continue to be seen as disposable. And that is totally unacceptable. And I know that you can't do this alone, so I'm calling on you to call on your other partners, the other ministries, to ensure that there is a whole of government approach to implementing these calls to justice. Because when it comes time to next year, when we have the next annual report, I certainly hope that there is going to be a heck of a lot more progress and a heck of a lot more to report on so that we can see what's happening to realize those changes on the ground in our communities. There's too many reports of murdered and missing Indigenous women in this country, and it's shameful. I can't think of another word to say other than it's shameful, and we need to stop that. And you need to work with us closely in making sure that we can work towards the implementation of those recommendations and to make sure that we are actually making a change in this country. Because without that, this is going to continue to happen. Thank you.
Miigwech, Chief. So if a technician, if you can please put 4 minutes for each chief, and thank you for not using all your minutes, but I'll manage the period of time, the remainder of period. So microphone number 1, please.
Wajik, so we have started with Talwab and Nahasana Dobbs, First Nation Dosti. And then last one, we're going to go to Visit next up, she's Mahayana, Wagagi, Pagatina, Moon, Sandy, Winston Shaw. Okay, go on, I got good. I am honored to be here today. What you, Minister. You know, the report you just did, it sounds too good because it doesn't reflect what you say about my community. You know, I'm situated in the remote north. We live in a half square mile of land. And we're packed like sardines. And we've been at this ATR process far too long. And it's been too long. And now we got to the point where I get really frustrated, and I told government in Ontario, do what you need to do to release some land so we can develop. We need land, we need infrastructure, we need housing. You know, the state of my community shouldn't be living in this condition. And I urge you, you have to do better. You have to do better with our relationship, the relationship we're supposed to have as nation to nation. And it's just not happening fast enough. You know, we need to build, we need land. And it's really disrespectful and shameful that I have to go through this process just to acquire more land when it's our land to begin with. You know, it's shameful. And we need to do better. And I don't understand why you formed 2 departments of serving Indigenous people. One is the program and one is relations. And I get frustrated when I try to make a call to you directly You're no special to me than I am, you know? We're supposed to be equal. You guys say you work for us. We need to be answered. And I came to the assembly just to have our voices heard, the one in the remote north, the one that are trying to get out of poverty and meet the basic needs for their people. There's a lot of us communities out there, and we have to do better. We have to do better, people, all the chiefs. Mingash, thank you.
Miigwech Chief, we'll go back to Minister. Over to you. If you want to take the microphone over there, it's up to you, or you can come here as you wish. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and let me just try to answer some of these questions. I think with respect to Chief Mitchell about child and family services, it's an area that we have worked a great deal on together with the Assembly of First Nations, as well as many other partners, and fully recognize that there's work to do. And as we finalize agreements and finalize discussions, I think it's important to keep in mind what this is all about. This is about ensuring children are left in their communities and stay in their communities. At the same time, the communities themselves have self-determination over this issue, and I think since the decision of our government to bring in, or of the Supreme Court rather, to reiterate our ability to enter into C-92 discussions and ensure that there is self-determination, I think the pace at which we're moving towards agreements has really speeded up. But we know that there's still a lot more work to do, and we will continue to work. Chief Casimir, I know the issue around missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, I think, is something that, that really it's been a very difficult conversation. It's been a difficult journey for many in this room, many who have been fighting for decades for governments to act. And while I fully recognize the frustration you have, and I too share that frustration, I just want to assure you that we are in the right track. We are working together. This February, we had the second Indigenous provincial, territorial, federal meeting on missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit individuals. This is the second of its kind, and we bring everyone together who are impacted and who are working in the front lines to sit down with governments and to come up with solutions. And I think as we're progressing, and while the pace of progress may be frustrating, make no mistake that we are going in the right direction. And one of my commitments is to make sure that we put an end to this tragedy. This is not something in 2024 is acceptable to have Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit individuals feel unsafe. This is a priority for us. We need to work together. We need to continuously engage each other and to understand each other. And one of the things that I realized is that what happens in northern British Columbia is very different than what happens in downtown Winnipeg, or what happens in Ottawa or other major cities. We don't have one crisis, we have multiple crises in different areas. But the underlying reality is that it's rooted in racism and systemic racism, whether it's be the police, the justice system, or the lack of basic services, and also the gap that exists between First Nations and non-First Nation people. But I look forward to working together with you, Chief, and to all of you here. This is something we will get to the bottom of, and it will require sustained efforts. To Chief Sylvie, I think on the ATR, there will be a lot of discussion has taken place, and I know we've done a lot of work. And I think we're close to the end on this, and we're close to having a process that is a lot more accessible and with some policy changes coming down the line. The work that's been done by the Chiefs of Ontario as well as AFN, I think, has been very, very important. And the next step is for us to develop and get that policy through Cabinet, and it's something that we will work towards. I also recognize that in remote communities particularly, it is much harder to access resources, much harder to access supports, especially on issues like healthcare, and the gaps are actually much larger. So we do need to continue to sustain those efforts to close those gaps. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Minister, thank you very much, Chiefs. And Minister has agreed to, because it's already 11, so the period of time would be ended at this time, but he agreed to take three more interventions, so three more chiefs. So the quickest way, as I mentioned, would be to hear the three of you and then go back to Minister, and then this will end the session. So because our other guest is already arrived, so we'll go to microphone number 2, then microphone number 1, and we'll go back to microphone number 2 for the three last speakers. Microphone number 2, please. Over to you.
Right. Election 1 in Jawa and Squash Lise Behan Cook Bevan Selectco in the Cup Nation, British Columbia, Canada. Good morning, Lise Behan, Chief Co-Water Band. This morning I have a contingency beside me to support me, Chief Dan Manuel, Upper Nicola Band, Chief Jordan Spinks, and Chief Pamela Robertson, as well as members of Council of Co-Water Indian Band. I thank you for your report, Minister, and you know, one of the things that you talked about was the historical wrongs that Canada has done. And I want to talk to you about the Trans Mountain pipeline, the existing one, the one that was put in 1950. And what Coldwater has a problem with, and you know, we met with your predecessor, Minister Mark Miller, in January. And Minister Haydu committed to obtaining Coldwater's consent moving forward. And for the time dealing with the trespass in terms of Coldwater, and the consent is now. Failure to do so creates financial and reputational risks for Canada and any potential pipeline purchaser regarding the Trans Mountain Expansion Pipeline. And I tell you this because, you know, Canada has not committed to Coldwater. And we hope, with you being here today and listening to the commitments that you're putting forward, that you go back and you talk to Minister Haydu and Minister Freeland and tell them to come and meet with Coldwater Indian Band. And we hope that, you know, you look at all the chiefs here. In the past, we've had more than 5 questions. We're down to about 2. So I hope as a federal minister, you know, you take the time to listen to all the chiefs, because we've traveled a long ways to come here and listen to your report, and then hopefully we don't get pushed away and not get our questions answered. Guksham, thank you.
Miigwech, Chief. So we'll go to microphone number 1, please.
I just want to take the time to thank the Elder for the prayer, and I thank the Creator for another day. But I have troubles when you talk about modern treaty, and you include Métis with the modern treaty, but you're disrespecting the historic treaties. There wouldn't be a Canada if it wasn't for our treaties. You know, you talk about nation to nation. There's a troublesome resolution. I don't even know if you look at all the resolutions. Resolution 35 dealing with treaty. We want to talk about nation to nation, you come talk to me. You don't come talk to this AFN table or whatnot. You want respect, you got to treat us the same. At least say hi on the street when I pass you. You know, and the Natural Resource Transfer Act. No, we shouldn't be struggling in our own lands. We should be the Saudis of Canada. Why are our people sleeping on the streets? If that's not right. Our people are suffering with addictions and everything. My community is being overlooked. No, even the structure of AFN, how it's set up. You know what? It's troublesome when the big bands have the same vote as littler bands. Even the formulas with the monies handed out, it's very troublesome. And we got limited time here to talk, you know, so I'm going to give my time, the rest of my minutes, to my brother here from Beaver Lake. You know, we're holding a treaty meeting, 1 to 11 in Cold Lake, August 26th or 30th. You're invited to come. The Governor General will come. And if the King, if you're listening, come. And if Trudeau, if you have balls enough, come to my territory. But I'm going to pass it to...
Chief Gary Lehman, Beaver Lake Cree Nation, Treaty 6 territory. Once again, we are co-hosting this Treaty 1 to 11 gathering on the shores of Cold Lake, beautiful Cold Lake. And again, an open invitation to all to talk about everything treaty and our sacred treaties. What I wanted to mention was the opioid pandemic. I think there needs to be more energy put towards our opioid pandemic that's going on here and destroying our people at an alarming rate. Minister, you know this, and we've talked about this before. I just want to talk to you about putting more energy, resources, funds towards our this opioid pandemic. The evolution of addiction is it's alarming, and we need to keep up with this. So our First Nations, we need to have the resources to fight the way this addiction problem is going. So I ask you to start talking to the other ministers, talk to the Prime Minister and tell him, okay, let's start putting some muscle towards this, some financial muscle and resources. Thank you.
Miigwech, Chief. So just Chiefs and Proxies, just want to remind you all that maybe to make sure that language is appropriate, respectful at the microphone. But on that, we'll go to our last speaker, microphone number 2, please.
Good morning. My name is Regina Crowchild. I'm proxy for Chief Roy Whitney at Tsuut'ina Nation. To back up what Chief Jacko just said, and Chief Lehman, I want to notify you, Mr. Minister, if you listen, quit being on your phone or talking and listen to us. That's what you're here for. That to inform you that we have international treaties with the Imperial Crown, not with the state of Canada. The state of Canada is only in our territory because of our treaties. You have a responsibility as given to you by the Crown that you implement the promises of treaty, not make us subordinate to you. We are sovereign nations like Great Britain. The state of Canada gets their authority from Great Britain to legislate. We have our authority from our Creator, same level as the Crown. So why are you trying to do away with our treaties where you have no business trying to terminate our treaties with the Imperial Crown? It's time, and it's time, you know, that you come and talk to the rights holders. In early March of 2016, your Prime Minister came to our nation. At that time, we invited him to come and meet with Treaties 1 to 11 rights holders. He has yet to come. Your ministers come for 2 hours and then they take off. And the same thing looking on their phones while we're trying to address our issues with them. There's got to be respect. And the reason why our peoples are living in poverty, they're on the streets, they have addictions, they have all those mental health issues, is because what Canada has done to our peoples. You want to correct it? You need to talk to us. You need to provide us with the resources so we can correct the wrongs that you did to our peoples. We are tired of you coming to this assembly where our consent is manipulated. So if you want true reconciliation, you want to have a better government-to-government relationship with us, come to Cold Lake and meet with our chiefs, who are the rights holders, not AFN. Thank you.
Miigwech Chief. So once again, a reminder to you all chiefs and proxies, kind reminder to please be mindful of your language when we are at the microphone. But on that, it's my first. Thank you for this. First boo. Okay, so on that, I want to go back to the minister to give him a chance to answer to you, chiefs and proxies. And I'm turning the floor over to you. Okay, perfect. So, Minister has agreed to go for 2 more. So, as you know, we'll go for the next, and the next speaker will be 1, and then we'll go to the last. This one, it's for real. Last speaker at microphone number 2. You can share your time if you want. You have 4 minutes, and if you can be the more precise and concise, brief as possible, would be appreciated for the rest of you. So over to microphone number 1, please.
My name is Anna Betty Yachnibaneshkam. I serve as a Deputy Band Chief for the Anishinaabe Nation. I'm proxy for Ganoguming. I'm going to keep my comments very short because I respect that I have other leaders here behind me to speak. Minister, you know, you used the words such as self-determination and treaty, and you know, you need to ensure that when you're using those terms, that you're respecting what they mean and what our definition is. You also mentioned that your government has been part of implementation of the calls for justice, but unless you come to Attawapskat, unless you come to Sandy Lake or any of our remote communities, you will see that the report that you have is not true, that we are still deprived of you know, adequate policing services, safe places, and also to the resources and services for us to help our families. 20 minutes ago, I was on the phone trying to acquire secure funding for a family who are searching for their daughter, sister, who has been missing for 13 months. And I have nothing. But yet you pride yourself on saying that you are implementing the calls for justice. I urge you to review that again, and unless you come to Attawapskat, Sandy Lake, or Fort Severn and other communities, and then you assess again. Miigwech.
Miigwech Chief. The reminder for you, Chief.
Saskatchewan First Nation, Councillor Hedman for my First Nation in the North Interlake of Manitoba. I'm here to talk to the Indigenous Services Canada here. Meaningful consultations, I don't want to repeat what the other leaders have already spoke about, nation to nation, ATR. My question to Canada would be, meaningful consultations need to take place in the area of ATR. We're giving away our lands at an alarming rate to foreigners, and that includes our crown lands of this country called Canada. We're losing Ishkwinigan in my First Nation is called leftover land. We need to add more lands to our lands that we have so we can share and live off the resources that Canada is enjoying. They're enjoying these resources to their benefit. How many homes they're creating for the foreigners that they're bringing in, and without proper registration, without proper identification with these foreigners that are coming into our country. Why is that? We are all surveyed out, Minister. All of our country here in Canada, our First Nations are surveyed out, and we also say every child matters. Why are we excluding the children that were brought up in the provincial CFS system? Why are we continuing to avoid them from receiving any benefits from that $40 billion that's coming? It wasn't my children's fault when they were removed in 2011 due to the man-made flood in the North Interlake. A man-made flood that was not our fault. Our children were placed in the provincial welfare system. Now, because that happened, now my children from my community that were purposely removed are not entitled to that 40 billion that's coming. So, Minister, correct the wrongs. Correct our youth. We say every child matters. Let's make every child matter. Count them in. Thank you.
Miigwech Chief, so the last 4 minutes. Microphone number 2, please.
Thank you, Mayor Chair. Chief Marcel Head from Shoal Lake Cree Nation. Not too long ago, we entered into a self-government, self-determination with your lead negotiator. But there's, you speak of words like, working together, collaborating together, strengthening the relationship. That relationship is weak in terms of the negotiator. There's an unwillingness to, charter into a process that we call that's unchartered and unique. And that is going back to the original spirit and intent of treaty, to right the wrongs. Not the government to right the wrongs, but will teach you how to right the wrongs. There's so many injustices that have happened throughout the years since the day after treaty. And today we have a process that we tell the government of Canada that this land called Canada is still our land. It was never given up when we signed treaty. It was never given up, nor the resources that are within the traditional territories. I stood before 3 prime ministers, Mr. Minister, and I've told them exactly the same thing. It's time that First Nations in Canada take their rightful place in Canada to take back what was taken and stolen from us, the lands and the resources that still belong to us. Now, this process in regards to self-determination, you've got to straighten out your lead negotiators. There is an unwillingness there to negotiate self-government, self-determination processes. We're telling Canada to push aside all your policies, your legislations, and listen to a process that dates back what should have happened the day after treaty. And you've heard chiefs here today, speaking of treaty. There is a relationship that was broken right after the day of treaty. And we have to, reconcile that process. And I'm talking about, going back to the spirit and intent of treaty. So I want you, Mr. Minister, to talk to your lead negotiators, specifically with Chris Durand, who's unwilling or unprepared to listen to what the process means to us. And that is going back, like I said, going back to the original and spirit intent of treaty. That's all we asked for. And I understand, there's a councillor from James Smith that wants to address the minister in the last few minutes. Thank you.
Miigwech Chief, so the last, the reminder of the time, you share it between yourself. Over to microphone number 2, Chief.
Good morning. My name is Alvin Mustos. I'm from James Smith Cree Nation. I'm here on behalf of Chief Kirby Constant, new elected Chief of James Smith. I'm a proxy for Chief Constant. I think what's very important to us is that I want to ask the Minister to rescind the NRTA transfer agreement. It's destroying it's keeping us poor as people. I don't know why the provinces don't want to share with the First Nations. Yet back in Saskatchewan, we have lots of reserves back home, and nobody wants to share. The federal government, the provinces don't want to work together. How are we supposed to move ahead if the provinces and the federal government don't work together? That's setting everything back. So we have to see, the federal government has to try working with the provinces, and the provinces working with the federal government and the First Nations to bring all our people to the table. Right now, we can't even get the province to the table. We always have to come to Ottawa for talk to ministers, and I don't know what's going on there, so something's going to happen. So I like to see the provinces, federal, and the First Nations people working together to move this country forward. So with that, thank you very much.
Chief, can we have 30 seconds? 30 seconds.
Yeah, no, thank you, Minister. We're asking a simple question. We're also asking the AFN to support the treaty, the 3 Western nations there, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. We continue to work on this Natural Resource Transfer Act. We want that support. But Minister, what we said last spring with the Assembly here, we ask you to work with your Minister, your Attorney General. We ask that question again, to repeal and rescind the Natural Resource Transfer Agreement Act. We ask that, Minister. We will continue saying that, and say that also to the Prime Minister. We want revenues. We want our land back. We want part of our resources. We agreed with the treaties to share the land and share the resources. We never ceded anything. We never gave anything up, Minister. Very simple question, okay? Thank you very much.
Miigwech, Chief. So I just, okay, because of the boo a bit earlier, I got a deal, and we will have time to the last 4 minutes. So please share it between yourself. I trust you. So microphone number 2, please.
All right, I appreciate it as the host nation, or Kanien'kehá:ka. So I'm going to share it with my colleague from Kanesatake. So Minister, I mean, we had a conversation not too long ago, you know, and you had mentioned about looking at pathways to correct injustices, you know, and the topic was about membership. And my pathway that I thought about, but we had to get cut off in the caucus room, is simply enough that turn membership over to the communities and we will determine who our people are, and not for the federal government at all. The federal government needs to be out of membership altogether, and we will determine our people and who they are.
Thank you, Chief.
I am the Grand Chief of Kanesatake and Mohawk Territory. My question is to the Minister and Minister Haju concerning the illegal dumping in my community of Kanesatake and the characterization and the dictatorship choice that your office has made to my community rather than letting my community decide who's going to do the characterization of that. And that bill is upwards of over $100 million. Yet you refuse to listen to my community and my office, my elected office, but you're listening to 5 ousted individuals who were ousted in non-confidence vote from my community twice in October and November of 2023. But you're ignoring my emails and my letters and my text messages to your own cell phone number. So I want to know why you're not listening to my voice and my community's voice, which I carry. And when are you going to meet with my community to discuss this issue of illegal dumping and toxicity in my community, of the illegal dumping and the wastewater and the characterization of a large site and other dump sites in my community? I'm tired of being ignored. My community is tired of being ignored. When are you going to start listening to my community? You say you're here to listen to communities, but you're not. You're listening to 5 ousted individuals who are running on the Indian Act when my community is a custom band. You're not listening to us. You're not listening to community. You're not listening to people. Start listening to their voice. We know what we want. We know how to fix it. We've made you guys survive here for hundreds of years. We know how to fix our problem. Listen to us. Give us that chance. Give us the opportunity. Come to my office and talk to me and my community. Yangoa.
Miigwech, Grand Chief. The reminder of the time, microphone number 2, please.
It's probably very apropos that I say these words today on Haudenosaunee traditional territory. I'm flanked here by other Mohawk chiefs. In the 1600s and 1700s, the English were always on our doorstep, looking for a strong military ally to oppose their imperial opponent, the French king. Our people sided with the king to be the king's ally, and we have fought in every war since that time, over 300 years. The Crown entered into historic treaties with our people. The Crown is not honoring those treaties, and all I heard you say is that you wanted to honor the modern treaties. What about the historic ones? Our land was supposed to be protected from trespass. The Crown failed in its responsibility. All they can ask us for is to offer us money and to extinguish the rights to our land that we never surrendered in the first place. The Crown accepted the claim because it was never surrendered. When we file claims, your staff lose our files. You lost the claim for the middle third of the Tyendinaga track in 2020. I had to deliver another box to Mark Miller. This is no long, and it was through the help of our people that the English asserted sovereignty, but with the help of the English, the imperial crown in historic times. Otherwise, there would be no Canada. And so I want to know what you're prepared to do to honor the historic treaties that go beyond the modern, that date back beyond the modern treaties. I never heard you say anything in your speech about that this morning.
Miigwech to all chiefs. So the session, the Q&A session is now closed, and we'll go for final comments by Minister Ananda Sangari. Over to you, Minister, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. There's a lot for me to cover, so I will be very, very brief. Let me just start off with the questions around Trans Mountain. I will, first of all, I will speak to Minister Hajdu. I'm not personally involved with it, but I will be more than glad to have a conversation on this with you as well, Chief Spahan. With respect to historical treaties, and there's a number of questions around historical treaties. No, Canada has not done a good job in honoring historical treaties. I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of disparities continue to exist. And I think we're working through many of the past wrongs, and we are trying to address them. We have some very concrete examples of progress. So agriculture benefits, for example, in Manitoba and Saskatchewan have been fast-tracked, so we're trying to get resolution on that, and we've already resolved many of those claims. The Robinson-Huron Treaty discussions have concluded with an unprecedented $10 billion towards failed annuity increases. And we're continuing to work on many of the outstanding issues. It's not a perfect fix, and it's certainly not the way I think we should have done this from the outset, but here we are. We are trying to correct the mistakes. It will not bring back the losses you have and the failures that have existed, but it does bring us to a better place, and I look forward to working towards that. Chief from Beaver Lake, I'm sorry I didn't get your name. The opioid crisis is a national crisis. It's impacting many communities, but particularly northern and remote communities, and I've heard this over and over and over again, and the impact on families, on communities, and nations is severe. And it is something that I think we're, as all levels of government, are grappling with to see what the best course of action is. And I don't think we have a simple solution. I think we have multiple solutions. Some of them are attempts to look at new ways of doing things, and treatment facilities are a critical part of that. I know there's some discussion around treatment facilities in many communities, and the folks I met this week have reconfirmed that. But it's a crisis that I think many in this room are on the forefront of. I know many chiefs, when I was in New York for the UN PIFI, many chiefs told me about what they lost just that week, and it is just absolutely heartbreaking to see. In terms of Chief Betty, I think she was talking about the loss, and I think the challenges she's facing in her community, and the need for reform on policing and making sure that there's localized policing and supports that are self-determined, and I know Mr. LeBlanc talked about this as well when he was here, and we will work together towards ensuring that there's First Nations policing that is available to all. In terms of ATR reform, I think this is Councillor Shorting was talking about ATR reform, and some others talked about this as well. People spoke about land back, and that is definitely something that I believe in as well. Returning land is an essential part of reconciliation, and whether it's through modern treaties or through ATR reform or through any of the other processes we have, the return of land is crucial. and I will work with you on that. I know with the NCTR, it's a little bit more difficult for us because these are agreements that were done many years ago, and unfortunately the nature of the Federation does limit us from just saying we cannot continue within the NCTR. So it is a conversation I've had with many of you in this room, many of you as I visit your communities, but it is something that I think we have some limitations on. In terms of, I think Chief Cody Diabo's comments with respect to membership. Look, I have no business defining who and who is not a member of your community. The Indian Act does not have business defining who and who is not a member of your community. Canada does not have that, should not have that ability, but unfortunately we're here where that is one of the root issues around the Indian Act and the systemic failures and discrimination that exists within the Indian Act. So we've had a number of temporary band-aid solutions, whether it's the second generation cutoff or sex discrimination within the Indian Act, where we are constantly doing patchwork to keep up. But ultimately, I think we need to get to a place where membership and citizenship is defined by you in your communities, and I do want to get to that point, and I can make that commitment to work with you to that effect. If I missed anyone, I will, I'm around for the rest of the afternoon as well, and my team is here. Thank you all for your candid comments and conversations, and of course, this is a way for you to keep me and the government accountable, and we will continue to be here and to work. Whether we can advance as fast at the pace you want may be difficult, but we will continue to be there to have these conversations. Thank you. Sorry, NRTA, you're right. NRTA. That's correct. Natural Resource Transfer Act. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much, Mr. Minister Ananda Sangiri. Yep. Your time was very, very appreciated, as we can see by all the chiefs and proxies and the delegation. And National Chief has a gift for you. And yep.
Thank you, and I know that I really appreciate you staying longer. I know I've been muscling you here to stay a bit longer, but it's so important that we hear from our people. We have a small gift for you on behalf of all of us, the Assembly of First Nations, as well for your daughter. Thank you. Yeah, take it.
Thank you so much, and on that, we will navigate to our next speaker, because we're a bit behind schedule. So on that, I want to first thank a big thank you to our next guest speaker for his understanding. We're a bit late, but I'm sure you understand that. And I will now invite the next speaker, Terry Duguid, Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister and Special Advisor on Water. Welcome on the stage, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you. Bonjour tout le monde, c'est un grand plaisir d'être ici avec vous ce matin. Thank you for having me as your guest today on the traditional territory of the Kahnawake Haga people. And I've had the opportunity in the past to speak to various fora on water that AFN has hosted, but it's a great honor for me today to speak at your annual General Assembly on a topic that I know is of great interest, essential to the life of your communities, essential to life on this planet. And if you'll cast your minds back to 2015, there were at least 105 water advisories in effect for over a year. You know more than anyone how this happened. Decades of successive governments, including governments led by my party, ignored the needs of First Nations and chose not to invest fairly. This peaked under Stephen Harper and Pierre Poilievre, when your calls were ignored and you had to take it to the streets to be heard. In 2015, Prime Minister Trudeau promised to repair that relationship. 9 years later, there is still a lot of work to do, but significant progress has been made. Today, 30 long-term water advisories are still in effect, down from 105. There are plans in place and work being done to eliminate those remaining 30. And I know it is no consolation to those 30 that remain. I had just about 45 minutes ago a meeting with Grand Chief Fiddler and Chief Monius from Niskandiga, and which really brought home to me the reality that many First Nations still face in terms of health impacts and mental health impacts of these boil water advisories. But the progress that has been made, First Nations communities across the country made this happen. First Nations water operators, water walkers, water keepers, and water carriers worked tirelessly to get us there. They did their job and got the work done. They just needed a government to do its job and invest in them, realizing that there's much more work to do. Now, we can never let reckless cuts and indifference of the Harper era bring us back to where we were in 2015. That's why we tabled Bill C-61, the proposed First Nations Clean Water Act. It has the potential of ensuring access to clean drinking water and better water management for generations to come. Pendant trop longtemps, trop de Premières Nations ne pouvaient pas faire à l'eau.
For too long, too many First Nations could not drink the water coming out of their faucet. This is not just, especially in a country that wants to be egalitarian. Drinkable water is a basic need.
Didn't have confidence that the water they got from their taps was safe. This is a fundamental injustice, especially in a country that prides itself in supporting equality. Clean and safe water is a basic need. Bill C-61 would recognize and affirm the inherent right to self-government, including First Nation jurisdiction in relation to water, source water, drinking water, wastewater, and related infrastructure on, in, and under First Nations lands. Aligned with the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, C-61 is the result of historic consultation and knowledge sharing with First Nations partners. Since 2018, we have been engaging with First Nations rights holders through institutions like the Assembly of First Nations on legislative reform. Indigenous modern treaty and self-governing partners have also been engaged on a bilateral basis. We also shared 2 drafts of the bill with First Nations across the country and posted them online for review. And we know some First Nations feel that they were not adequately consulted, and we're taking steps to remedy that. As you know, even though the Conservatives held up the bill for 7 months in the House of Commons, it is now moved to committee, and in the fall we'll be hearing directly from many of you in committee, and we are open to making changes to that bill so it better meets the needs of First Nations communities. But we cannot do this alone. We need your leadership, and we need you to make it clear to Conservatives that they cannot further delay this bill in committee. Parce que vous savez pourquoi il faut avancer.
You know why we have to go ahead. Too many communities do not have their word to say in water production, and they suffer from the said water contamination.
Forward. Too many communities don't have a say in the protection of their source water and suffer from its contamination. Take the Mikisew Cree Nation in Alberta. In November, there was a third spill upstream of communities at the Curl Mine. According to Chief Billy Joe Tucaro, who I spoke to personally at committee, people are scared to drink the water. The provincial Conservatives refuse to acknowledge this failure. In fact, a week after the third spill, Provincial Minister Brian Jean called the company's commitment to environmental protection top-notch. We also know the situation that the people in Grassy Narrows are facing. People's health is on the line. All governments cannot continue to do more of the same. That's why we've created the Canada Water Agency. It is the focal point for fresh water, working in collaboration with all partners, including Indigenous peoples, to keep water safe, clean, and well managed. Bill C-61 will focus on water and related infrastructure on First Nations lands. On its part, the Canada Water Agency is focusing on improving water outcomes more broadly in the country, which includes modernizing the Canada Water Act, Canada's major water protection law. It has been over 50 years since the Canada Water Act came into force, brought in by Pierre Elliott Trudeau in 1971. And during that time, since then, much has changed in our environment, our society, and legislative framework. For example, freshwater challenges have increased due to factors such as population growth, industrial development, and agricultural intensification. Climate change, of course, is with us, amplifying freshwater impacts. The United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, UNDA, also came into force in 2021, requiring the Government of Canada to take all measures necessary to ensure that the laws of Canada are consistent with the Declaration. In 2021, the Prime Minister mandated Minister Stephen Gilber, our Minister of Environment, to, following the establishment of the Canada Water Agency, advance the modernization of the Canada Water Act to reflect Canada's current freshwater reality, including climate change and Indigenous rights. As a first step, the Canada Water Agency has started a and I emphasize this, pre-engagement phase of this review process. During this phase, the agency will seek input from Indigenous partners on how they want to be engaged during the Canada Water Act review. This will culminate in meaningful and well-funded plans for the next engagement phase. The Canada Water Agency will also lead on the delivery of freshwater ecosystem initiatives under the Strengthened Freshwater Action Plan by investing $650 million to strengthen the protection and restoration of major watersheds such as the Great Lakes, Lake Winnipeg, Lake of the Woods, the St. Lawrence River, the Fraser River, the Woolastook-St. John River, the Mackenzie River, and Lake Simcoe. For all of those initiatives to work, they need to respect your self-determination, because Ottawa knows best solutions are not only disrespectful, they simply don't work. When he was Minister of Housing, Pierre Poilievre oversaw a paternalistic, one-size-fits-all housing fund of $300 million for First Nations, but he did not consult you, did not let communities take the lead, and the result, he got exactly 99 homes built this way. The same can be said about the Conservative approach to water. They did not follow the lead of communities, so more and more advisories appeared, and they were not addressed. This changed when we decided to work with First Nations partners and follow your lead. When communities have what they need to take the lead, we see results. Take, for example, Star Blanket Cree Nation, who just last week celebrated the opening of a new water treatment plant, state-of-the-art. It is providing clean water to all homes and community buildings. This is a crucial step in lifting their long-term water advisory. Greater self-determination also means communities have what they need to address issues as soon as they arise. Mushua Innu First Nation, Mishki Gogamang First Nation, and others all were able to recently address issues quickly and lift their short-term water advisories before they became long-term. Self-determination also means that communities have the resources to hire and train local technicians to manage and maintain water systems. That includes water operators like Warren Brown from Lytton, BC First Nation, who won the National First Nations Water Leadership Award in 2023. He operates 13 drinking water systems and has led work to lift 6 long-term drinking water advisories. When First Nations communities are responsible for their own water, and when they have the resources they need to build infrastructure and train the staff, the gaps close. The work being done for Bill C-61 and through the Canada Water Agency is also aligned with efforts to combat environmental inequities. This includes efforts to address environmental racism. I know a topic that comes up commonly in the House of Commons, and we now have Bill C-226, an act respecting the development of a national strategy to assess, prevent, and address environmental racism and advance environmental justice. As you know, environmental racism has a long history in Canada. For decades, certain communities have been disproportionately affected by environmental hazards such as pollution, toxic waste, landfills, and dumps. The experience of Indigenous peoples in this space is particularly pronounced given the history of colonialism and relationship with the Crown. This new law acknowledges the ongoing inequities across the country and that the communities bearing these burdens are often members of an Indigenous, racialized, or an otherwise marginalized group. It also begins to chart a path forward towards environmental justice. So just concluding, through Bills C-61 and C-226 and the work of the Canada Water Agency, we are doing our best to follow the lead of Indigenous partners. These bills are meant to advance equality and justice across Canada with First Nations communities, and fundamentally, they're about fairness. We know there is still a lot of work to do. Centuries of colonialism will not be fixed overnight. But again, following your lead, we can protect the precious fresh water of this land for this and future generations to come. I know I'm looking forward to sitting in on the plenary session on C-61 and listening to how you think the bill can be improved and how we can continue our journey of partnership together. So thank you very much, and thank you, National Chief, for the invitation, and I hope you have a great assembly. Thanks so much.
Terry DeGood, and National Chief is giving him a gift, as we do for all our guests. So thank you very much. So on that, we will now turn for announcements before the lunch, and I'm going to turn the floor over to my colleague Cedric. Thank you very much.
So I know I'm right between you and lunch, but we do have a few announcements to make. The first one regards that it's come to our attention that there is a proposed draft resolution that's being distributed on the floor with number 00-2024 that's not been finalized or gone through the AFN resolutions process. As you know, the official on-time resolutions packages with the updated numbers was posted in advance of the assemblies and again is available at distribution, which changed place since yesterday. If ever there are any proposed changes to the sequence of resolutions or new emergency resolutions that are approved, the chairs will notify you. On the topic of resolutions, you have 13 minutes left because the deadline for late resolutions is today at 12, again with our resolutions committee. And finally, all resolutions, as you know, are reviewed in accordance with the policies that you can find on page 15 and 16 in the conference booklet, including potential emergency resolutions. Finally, once the process that is led by the Resolutions Committee is complete, any updated resolutions and new resolutions will be distributed through our distribution team. Rapidly, just to inform you that during our lunchtime, there is going to be a meet and greet with Chuck Hughes, not to be mistaken with our knowledge keeper, Chuck Hume. He's, as you all know, a Montreal chef who has a show called Chuck and the First People's Kitchens, where he visits our communities and learns about our ways. So he's in the Circle of Trade. As soon as you go in, he's on the left. There was already a lineup just warning you. As we come back from our lunch at 1 o'clock, we'll be starting with a plenary on justice, as well as one on First Nations Clean Water Act, as mentioned by Mr. Terry Duguid. But before we go, we do want to take a moment of silence for the passing of a Treaty 6 elder, an artist, and an original member of the Group of Seven. We were informed that Alex Janvier from Cold Lake First Nations has passed to the spirit world to be with his family, and we'd like to take a moment of silence to recognize all the work he's done. So thank you all for that moment of silence in honor of Alex Janvier. And finally, as we head out to lunch, I would look towards our technical staff. If you can play the Aboriginal Financial Officers Association video, it's a quick video, so as you're on your way out, you'll be able to see it. Thank you and have a great lunch. We'll be back at 1.
Thank you.
There's the lady.